very distinguished panel to introduce today, so thank you so much. The panelists are going to discuss how their work in R&D or their products can help grow and diversify Nevada's health economy beyond the clinical delivery service space. So, to start, we have Scott Shapiro from Cellmedics. Thank you. Anthony Rufo from Happy Home. Thank you. And Eric Homburg from Mode for Life. Thank you. And also Dr. Jeffrey Cummings from the Cleveland Clinic. Thank you. So I think you all have been instructed and know what to do at this point, so I'll step aside and let you do your thing. And the first one, do we okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, my name is Scott Shapiro. I'm the CEO of Cellmedics Incorporated. We are domiciled at Roseman University of Health Sciences. We're a biopharmaceutical company that has broken new ground in creating a breakthrough topical and transdermal drug delivery system. It's a platform technology, and we're able to deliver molecules into and through the skin to target tissue with greater effectiveness than pills, patches, and in some cases needles. We avoid the first pass effect, so we limit side effects to the stomach and the liver, and in some cases the kidneys. We're able to deliver large molecules, some proteins and peptides. We're working on transdermal delivery of vaccines and therapeutic proteins. We've had some good success. We've undergone 7 clinical trials with various big pharma companies on a whole range of difficult-to-deliver molecules. The drug delivery space is about $1.2 trillion when you consider all drug delivery methods, which would include pills, patches, needles, inhalers, nasal sprays. We've got a patented and provable competitive advantage in the topical drug delivery space, which is the fastest growing of the drug delivery segments. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Rufo, and I'm the president of Happy Home, Inc. HAPPY is an acronym standing for Helping All People Promote Independence Every Day. And we think of ourselves, and what we've designed is a solution, an in-home solution that came out of a need that we had personally from our own family. My mom and sisters lived back east. When my mom retired, she stopped answering the telephone, and she tried to force one of my 4 sisters to make a visit. My sisters were very concerned about her because they would make a phone call. She was 90 when she retired. They'd make a phone call, she wouldn't answer, and then they were wondering whether something had happened or whether or not she was doing something in order to get this visit. So we knew technology was going to have to be the answer because I'm a 5th sibling and I'm in Nevada, so a little too far from New York. And so we started down the path of coming up with a solution that could be a cross or a hub of the home, something that could link the smart and connected and secure home of today with the health and wellness goals of the home for the future, and maybe even partake in some way in delivery of care at point of service being the home. So we've developed a technology that's very similar in size to an Apple TV. It connects between the entertainment system and the television and controls the television. And then we use free language or natural language processing. So your Siris, your Alexas of the world. So just speak out and she'll hear you and respond back. We moved forward and with our technology elected to not use one of those, but to actually develop our own voice engine. And the reason we did that is not only do we want Happy to be able to hear mom or dad, grandma, grandpa, whoever it happens to be, but we also want Happy to be able to analyze the voice, the speech pattern, repetition, stuttering, anything that may be some kind of an early indication that mom or dad weren't doing that well. So we've taken, in that little box that I described, we've taken artificial intelligence, natural machine learning, facial recognition, and voice recognition. And so what Happy is doing as it's monitoring or helping the caregiver monitor what's going on inside the home, Happy's learning the patterns, likes, dislikes, and routines of the person inside the home so that the caregiver could then take a look at our predictive alerts system and actually set parameters. So mom's always up by 9 o'clock. If it's 9:15, Happy, send me a text. It's 10:45 and it's time for mom to take her mid-morning medications. We'll display those on the television and mom will either take them or not. So she has the option of telling Happy, I'm going to take it, I'm going to skip it, I'm going to snooze it. And that all, it gets referred to and delivered out to the caregiver. So our goal is to be able to let the caregiver get information via their smartphone or tablet, and whether they're, what's going on inside the home is inside or outside the normal parameters. And the other reason we've developed the solution the way we did is we want the person who's being cared for, their number one priority is aging in place, independence, and not having to make any kind of life change. And so the best way that we have found to do it is to be able to give the caregiver peace of mind in knowing that what's happening in the home is inside of parameters and there's no problems, but also be able to let that person who's living in the home live there longer, more securely, more safely, until maybe they need more assistance. One of the things that we think is going to be more valuable of what we're doing to the medical community is with this information, this data being collected, these routines being reported, could you imagine knowing what happened over the last days, weeks, months inside someone's home before they showed up in your emergency room as a potential patient or in the waiting room of the doctors as a potential patient? So we feel that that information is going to be very valuable, and also the ability to deliver that person after they get discharged back into their home and know what kind of an environment you're delivering them to. We started 4 years ago here in Nevada. Nevada is a great place to do business, and this is where we're going to do our initial trials of the technology this summer. Nevada is really scalable. I mean, if you look at the AARP stats, there are 500,000 unpaid caregivers in the state of Nevada. We have a population of approximately 3 million people. So that's a 6-to-1 ratio, which is actually lower than the national ratio of 8-to-1. By 2050, AARP tells us that caregiving is going to be a 3-to-1 ratio, where 3 people, they're going to be able to give care to every one person who needs the care. So we know that technology is going to have to be the solution because we're not going to have the people power to do it. We've got great working relationships today with GoEd, with Las Vegas Heals, with UNLV, and with the Healthy Brain Foundation of the Cleveland Clinic. We're moving our offices to the medical corridor, where we'll be expanding our relationships to include colleges, universities, large employers, and insurance carriers. We talk about caregivers, but caregivers are also patients. Caregivers are also employees. And we also talk about the loved one who needs the care. They tend to be retirees, and why not work with large employers and the unions to try to come up with a better way to take care of their retirees. So the other beautiful thing about Nevada is it's remarkably scalable. It's close-knit here in Clark County. We can do a test of, or a pilot of 50 or 100, 150, 200 units, be able to access it really easily, but also be able to scale the numbers, the feedback that we're going to get from those subscribers or those test pilot participants, and actually scale that data so we'll know what we're going to need to do when we go into a larger metropolitan market or when we go into smaller secondary and tertiary markets. We're, from a workforce standpoint, we think Nevada's got a wonderful workforce that's going to be important to us from a software engineering standpoint, from a computer scientist standpoint, technical customer care specialists, as well as seasoned business managers and leaders. I mean, we're a small company. We're 4 years old. Our technology is patent pending, but we expect that we'll be able to roll the Happy Home solution from here out throughout the state, throughout the U.S., and then globally. And another great reason to pick Nevada as the place to roll out Happy Home is because my wife is a native of Las Vegas. When we started this 4 years ago, she said, I want you to do 2 things. She said, 1, take care of my city. 2, take care of my state. Roll it out beyond that any way you wish. So, you know, the conversations with the Healthy Brain folks, they talk about the pillars of brain health, which are stay physically and mentally active, good nutrition, quality sleep, low stress, et cetera. we've built Happy as a modular solution that actually monitors many of those things and up to and including physical therapy. So whatever we can do to help that person stay in their home longer, integrate with the medical community, those are the things we're going to do. I'll close with Rosalind Carter's quote that says that there's only 4 types of people in the world. Someone who was a caregiver, someone who is a caregiver, someone who is going to be a caregiver, and someone who needs care. Thank you.
All right, hello everyone. Thank you, Jillian, for the introduction to this group. My name is Eric Hamward, Chief Commercial Officer for Mobi. It's a B, by the way, so I think there may be, if you were trying to look us up, it might look a little bit different in the program. We inadvertently got the B versus D not right. So anyway, if you were to look us up online, you'd find us as Mobi for Life. We do go by Mobi. I'll try to give you a little bit of a short story. Guys, I do talk with my hands a little bit. I'm going to try not to flail into you. We're a little close, but no, you're good. You're good. So I come really from the pharmaceutical industry and spent about 23 years there. And one day the CEO came by and said, hey, I want to do something different and more pills for more people. Pretty interesting, especially for a guy who led commercial teams, army of salespeople to go out and promote a lot of different pills and a lot of different drugs, right? So I said, yeah, no, I'd like to be part of that. We did our day jobs. And at that time, we were really developing our central nervous system sales force, focusing on epilepsy, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's. We worked in a garage. It was a nice garage. There was a couple of cars and things like that, but it was a garage. And the idea was, let's create innovation in healthcare. Let's get out of the ivory tower that we're in today, and let's get into a new space where we can start thinking about things differently. And so we did. Mobi started out as a bit of an acronym with Be Mobile, Be Healthy. And we've migrated a little bit from there, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the story. But we set out on a mission to help figure out how to detect, predict, and prevent seizures. We were really focused on epilepsy. It was interesting, as a pharmaceutical company, we became drug agnostic. I mean, who does that? And companies that do that are ones that are looking for an opportunity to help people without their own agenda. And so we put a care management team together that included a group of pharmacists and technicians to help them understand the different drugs that they were on, help figure out if polypharmacy was the right thing for them or not, interact with their doctors. We built a wearable to help track the activity and the sleep. Our idea behind this is we would have lifestyle data that we could use longitudinally to help determine, or at least inform people when they're at greatest risk for having a seizure. We were able to build the diary for the Epilepsy Foundation, another way to track when they had a seizure, how they felt, and using all of this lifestyle data, drug data, and information around how they might manage through self-management, taking better care of themselves, lifestyle choices, activities, sleep are super important, particularly for people with epilepsy. Well, lo and behold, we did that. We launched that, and we were spending a bunch of time trying to figure out patient journeys and what was happening in the healthcare system. And I think at the end of the day, we think healthcare works really well in the acute care setting. We struggle a bit with the chronic care. And so we were watching some of these patients moving in and out of the healthcare system. So imagine the group now that we work with are sort of frequent flyers or high utilizers of the healthcare system and low intensity services, right? So they're not the really expensive people. If I were to draw this out on a chart, you would see these people go in and out. They're seeing a lot of different doctors. They're maybe not satisfied with the opinion that they got from one. They went to another doctor. And usually on every one of those doctor visits, there tends to be a drug that gets prescribed. It's just the way it is. Oftentimes that's the ante when you see a prescriber. And so we sort of put this all together. And I get back to better to be lucky than to be good. We sort of stumbled across this population that is, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. We validated it with a couple of different health plans, and then we brought it to market. So today we work with several Blue Cross Blue Shield plans across the country. And what we essentially have discovered through this innovation is about 5% of the population that spends about $20,000 per year. So not super expensive, but that's still real money. And they don't regress. So they're always expensive, they're always in the system, and they're not necessarily getting better. If you're a provider in the audience, you probably are already imagining who these people are. Oftentimes they sort of have a thick file. They're the ones that we've not been able to help or not been able to heal. And so this group represents a pretty significant portion of the spend at these health plans, and that's what we work with them. So again, 5% of the population spending about 20% of the dollars, about $20,000 per year. And what we do is we focus on self-management and medications. As you think about sort of the Affordable Care Act and the National Institutes of Health, they had taken a look at how do we handle this epidemic around chronic pain. And their solution was it's through self-management. People need to understand sort of their lifestyle choices and how they impact their overall health and use of healthcare. 65-70% of what you do in terms of your choices of lifestyle impacts how you feel and how much healthcare you ultimately use. So our team of guides, as we call them, or coaches in some cases, I guess as people would think of them, will help them on their journey. And their journey is very individual. We have one-on-one coaching with these individuals. They never have to switch a guide. They always get the same person, so there's a lot of consistency. We deliver it on a one-on-one personal telephonic relationship. We also deliver it in a digital app form as well with chat functions. Whatever way that they like to deliver the program, we'll deliver the program. So essentially what we're doing is we're teaching self-management skills. We're reminding them about how they think affects how they feel. The body is meant to heal itself. Medicine is an aid, not a cure. And that they actually have the ability and the power to make some of these decisions. Sometimes they just need a guide to give them that extra little push and encouragement. So we educate and we give people confidence. We ultimately allow them, of course, to have this type of information, and they have better conversations with their providers, both pharmacists and physicians. At the end of the day, we also do this on a risk-based. We believe in value-based care, value-based medicine. We also believe that we don't want to add any more dollars into the healthcare system. So we actually created a second company, domiciled in Bermuda. It's a reinsurance organization called Plymouth Guarantee. Where we will write a risk-based policy with health plans or employers in order to guarantee savings. We can talk more about that as we have maybe some individual time, but I know we're limited a little bit of what we do here. But I wanted to make sure that you guys understood what we do from a care management perspective and what our financial and business model is all about. We and my team, by the way, one of the co-founders, are from Minneapolis. Some of us have already moved out to Nevada. We're actually, we bought a building in Reno. It's going to be our second headquarters. We have an office and a facility here in Las Vegas, so we're expanding in the Nevada market. We're very excited and happy to be here. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Really great panel, and thanks to Las Vegas Heals and to the governor's office. Thank you. I'll get a little closer here. I'm from Cleveland Clinic, the Lou Ruvo Center for Brain Health, and also from a new program at UNLV called the Department for Brain Health. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about both of these. I think you know the Cleveland Clinic as a patient care organization with a patient's first philosophy. But we also do a lot of research at the Cleveland Clinic, Lou Ruvo Center for Brain Health. So we do clinical trials. We have a terrific brain imaging team. We have a large federal grant called the Center for Biomedical Research Excellence from the NIH. And we have a program for professional fighters' brain health. And panel 3 will include Dr. Bernick, who will talk about the professional fighters' brain health program. So I will not talk about that in my presentation. So we do lots of clinical trials. We usually have about 10 to 15 trials for Alzheimer's disease drugs. We have about 4 to 6 trials for Parkinson's disease and 4 to 6 trials for multiple sclerosis at any one point. So we usually have about 20 trials going on at the Lou Ruvo Center for Brain Health. For those of you who don't know trials, I'll just mention the numbers so you get a sense of this. In a usual trial these days, there are about 1,000 patients included. One center will usually recruit one patient per month who meets the inclusion and exclusion criteria. So there are usually 100 centers in a clinical trial, with each of them contributing 10 patients to the eventual number, because they can be recruited in about a year. So the recruitment goes on for about a year, and then most of our trials are now 18 months long, so there would be an 18-month treatment period after the last patient in. That's how a trial is done. So the Ruvo Center would have roughly 20 trials going on at any one time, and we'd be contributing about 10 patients to each of these trials. So that gives you a sense of kind of the way the flow goes. Why is this important economically? There are 43,000 Alzheimer's disease patients in the state of Nevada. So even if we saw them all day, every day, by the time we got to the end of the first 43,000, there would be thousands more. So a neurological center cannot take care of all of the patients with Alzheimer's disease. We have to find treatments. Right now we have really very few treatments, and none of them slow the progression of the illness. So clinical trials and the role of the Ruvo Center of Nevada in general in developing new medications is really critical to the future of the United States and the future of the world. So we feel really great about participating in these trials. The science is so exciting. We have all of these new biomarkers that we're using. You know, we now have, of course, special measures with MRI. With our PET scanner, we can now see the amyloid plaques and the neurofibrillary tangles. So we have scans for plaques, scans for tangles. We just started a new scan for inflammation. So we have tools that we have never had before that inform drug development and are available right here in Nevada. Brain imaging, of course, I've mentioned the strength of the tools that we have. We have an equally strong team. We have a medical physicist and 4 mathematicians and engineers that work with him to analyze the data that are generated through the medical imaging portfolio. The COBRI Award. COBRI, Center for Biomedical Research Excellence. It comes from the NIGMS, that's the National Institute of General Medical Sciences of the NIH, and it's part of something called the IDEA program, or Institutional Development Award. The IDEA program is specifically for infrastructure development and workforce development of states that are traditionally underfunded through NIH. So Nevada receives the 3rd lowest amount of NIH funding of any state in the United States. Only Wyoming and South Dakota get less funding from the NIH than Nevada does. So we are definitely in this NIH impoverished environment, and we intend to change that. The IDEA award that we have is $10 million over 5 years. And that's a substantial amount of infrastructure development, both at Cleveland Clinic and at UNLV. The structure is such that there are 2 cores at UNLV and 2 at Cleveland Clinic, 2 projects at UNLV and 2 at Cleveland Clinic. So we share this tremendous resource. We're just up for renewal, so if I could ask everybody to cross their fingers and put their hand in the air, that will show that you're behind us to get the renewal. Thank you for that. We need the next $10 million to extend us for another 5 years. The COBRI, because it did substantially increase the support for neuroscience at UNLV, was an important bridge to the development of the new program for brain health, Department of Brain Health at UNLV. This is part of the School of Allied Health Sciences, and the president signed off on it on Tuesday of this week. So you guys are like getting, you know, the breaking news here about the new Department of Brain Health at UNLV. It will have 2 primary goals. Advanced research about neuroscience. It will be the primary neuroscience department at UNLV, and the second is to develop the next generation of neuroscientists. We're really excited about that. So Jeff Kinney will be the chair of the new department. Many of you know Jeff, a neuroscientist at UNLV. I will be the vice chair for research, and I will split my time between the Cleveland Clinic and UNLV. And that's my final point, which is collaboration is our strength. We're a small state that lacks a lot of infrastructure, and the way to move things ahead is for us to collaborate. I was so happy to hear the Happy Home presentation and the use of the healthybrains.org that we developed at Cleveland Clinic. That's an example of collaboration, and we will have many collaborations between the new Department of Brain Health and the Center for Brain Health of Cleveland Clinic. Thank you.
So thank you to all of you. By my clock, it looks like we have a good 15 minutes-ish to ask some questions. I'll lead off, if that's okay with the audience, and then I think we'll probably have time for somewhere between 3 and 5 questions. So for each of the panelists, it sounds like you've all come from different places outside of Nevada. And so I'm curious to hear, in terms of R&D, we know that obviously bridging many industries, many sectors seems to be the formula for long-term sustainability and success. In Nevada, where are the gaps for, your particular company and entities? What bridges need to be built? What infrastructure still is lacking and needs to be there? And finally, how do you get there? So I know that's a complex question, but I'm really curious as a newbie as well. What do we need to do to generate more success? Because you all have the ideas, but maybe the bridges haven't been fully built yet in the way that we've experienced in other states that have more robust R&D going on and infrastructure.
I'll take the first pass.
Okay?
Prior to moving to Las Vegas in '04, I spent 13 years in California, in Northern and Southern California. One of the things that always impressed me, I'm originally from New York, but one of the things that always impressed me about California was the remarkably tight collaboration between corporate America and academia. The number of breakthroughs you read in the business publications were staggering. And one of the things that led our company to start working with UNLV first in their Greenspun School, because they do all of our social media work, but also having initial conversations with the School of Nursing, Allied Health, and others, is I think that there's a tremendous wealth of information and knowledge. The universities are definitely on track to do important work, and I think that being able to connect more tightly as a corporation to what's going on in the university, I think that's a bellwether for where everything's going.
I'll take a shot at this also. It's something that's been on my mind, which is workforce development. When we are growing the clinical trials program, we need research assistants, we need research coordinators, we need individuals who are familiar with clinical trials historically and understand the conceptual framework for advancing clinical trials. And there are very few such people in Las Vegas and Nevada. And it's very hard to recruit an experienced person. You have to take a promising person and train them. And that takes tremendous time. And as soon as you get them trained, they're very attractive to the pharmaceutical industry. And so they're easily recruited to usually a better paying position. So we need to produce more people as a state who are familiar with science, who are familiar with the types of science that can be done well in Nevada. And I think the workforce development challenge is one of the major challenges that we have. We hope to address that through the new Department of Brain Health. And of course, the School of Medicine, I think, is also going to have an impact on this. The School of Medicine will eventually have a clinical trials program. There will eventually be people familiar with clinical trials. So I think there is a pathway ahead, but it's an unequivocal unmet need right now.
I'll take a shot at this. We're a biopharmaceutical company, so we're involved in development of therapeutics. And that makes us unique in the state. We're not a caregiver or a care delivery company. We're pure innovation, research, development, and ultimately commercialization of drug products, medications that can be more safely and effectively delivered without poisoning the stomach, liver, and to a lesser extent the kidneys. What's been helpful for my company are collaborations with universities. We received an Applied Research Initiative grant several years back with UNLV for the treatment of skin cancer using our patented transdermal topical drug delivery system on delivery of a new drug for the treatment of rheumatoid arthritis. We're working with yet another company for the delivery of a neurotoxin transcutaneously to take the place of Botox delivered via needle. Most importantly, I think, we're looking at delivering therapeutic proteins and vaccines, which would make using a needle hopefully obsolete. When you use the needle, you have a high risk of infection, especially in those countries where the humidity is high, like sub-Saharan Africa or South America. So in my view, to really grow the therapeutics space in the state of Nevada, we need relationships with universities and organizations like the Cleveland Clinic. In fact, we've started yesterday I spoke with the person domiciled, a really good scientist at Roseman University who's with Cleveland Clinic, and we're exploring some collaboration opportunities there. So from my standpoint, collaboration with world-class scientists is a way to grow the therapeutic space in Nevada, and I think it's, in the 10 years I've been here, it's getting better at an accelerating rate. So it would be great to be a driver of biomedical innovation here in Nevada.
Yep.
All right, these guys did a really nice job of answering that, so I will make mine short. I'm a bit of the newbie here, but maybe we'll start with sort of the definition of, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, right? So one of the things that we like about Nevada is sort of a fresh approach and a fresh perspective on things. I'm from Minneapolis, and a number of our folks are that when we were working on developing this company. And if you know much about that market, it's pretty heavy in healthcare services. United Health dominates that market. There's Blue Cross Blue Shield, there's all kinds of PBMs, lots of innovation around healthcare and things like that. Although there's still a bit of the old guard, right? Sort of their way of doing things. And what we like about sort of this idea of our second headquarters, focusing on digital and developing relationships with the various different provider and health systems and carriers in this market, as well as employers, I think gives us a fresh perspective because they're close enough to California. There's some people swapping back and forth. I think some really smart technology-based folks that will be some of those people we're starting to already recruit for. So we're in the very early stages. I actually was just talking to our recruiter before I came out here, and she's putting together some different job fairs and things like that. So we don't know what we don't know right now, but what we like is the fresh perspective that Nevada offers.
Okay, great. Do we have any audience questions? Any audience questions? I might be missing, it's a little bright up here. Yes, please, thank you, go ahead. Do we have a mic that we're passing around? Okay.
My question is specifically for Dr. Cummings as it relates to your Alzheimer's trials. So we know that Alzheimer's is a growing epidemic among the African American population. And you talked about the trials and how you recruit. I'm wondering how many African Americans have you been able to recruit for your trials? And are there any partnerships with the Cleveland Clinic and African American organizations to find more participants?
Okay, I'll just repeat it just so everybody has the benefit of knowing exactly what was asked. So the question relates to an issue that's near and dear to my heart because I started in clinical trials at Emory University and helped to establish the Emory Vaccine Center. And yes, this was an issue with HIV vaccines back in the day when I first started. How do you get the represented populations into the trials? And ultimately that affects product uptake and acceptability downstream. So that's the question here is, what are the numbers represented, which is always a key concern for the community members and the organizations that are representing them on the ground, and who's helping to facilitate the recruitment from the community organizational standpoint, is that right? As well as within your team even, so in terms of community outreach.
So it's a really great question and such an important one because when a drug is approved, it's marketed to everybody. And if you look at clinical trials in general, 95% of the participants are well-educated Caucasians. So when a drug is approved, we often do not know how it behaves in any minority population. We're trying to do our best, and we can do a lot better. And if you can help us, we would welcome that. We formed a community advisory board, which includes representatives from many or several minority communities. They've been extremely helpful. They redesigned our booklet to make it more culturally competent and effective. They have taken us to many of their organizations to allow us to present to populations that are different from those that usually seek care at the Cleveland Clinic. I happen to know, because I'm writing the renewal, that at this point our population is 17% non-Caucasian, non-Hispanic, non-Caucasian. Is that great? No, that's bad, but we started off at 3% when we decided we had to take this seriously, and so we're improving. And I think this is something that all science really needs to address. We have a diverse population. We live in a diverse society. Some of our strength comes from the diversity of the society, and we've got to include all of the elements of the society in the science that we do. I'd be glad to have a conversation with you after this to talk more about that. But we have had substantial efforts in this regard, and I can see them paying off now.
Great. Any other questions? Yes, please, go ahead.
We have a microphone.
Thank you.
So if we could ask that question in the microphone, please.
My question is specific to the Happy Home. Have there been any concerns about privacy issues that relate to that particular product? And also, what happens to the data that's collected? Where does it go? Just curious about any concerns.
As far as privacy issues are concerned, the chief scientist that is working with us to build this system came out of U.S. government work in cybersecurity. So he will tell you that there's no absolute as far as security is concerned, but he's told us that we've built the best that we can, and he also jokingly said, if you're going to hack the Amazon cloud, are you going to look for somebody who takes care of old people, or are you going to look for a financial institution? That same question spun a different way. We did some R&D work and some marketing work in the Sun City communities here in town. And if the person was not a caregiver and didn't have that kind of a need, their parents were healthy, their grandparents were healthy, their first thing was, ew, cameras. When we talked to the people who actually would be being cared for, they said their answers were varied. Their number one answer was, if this is going to let me stay in my home longer, more safely, knowing that someone from time to time would be looking in on me, I'm good. So that was the majority of the answers. Some people even said, I've got a child that makes me nuts. I don't particularly care to speak to them. And if they could look in on me and not call me, I'd be good. But the cameras are not just for surveillance. The intelligence that we've built into the application, the camera is actually looking at the person. They're looking at their walk, their gait, how they sit, are they slouching, and comparing what their norm is to differentials, and whether something is happening inside the home and the camera's picking up on a difference in change of posture, walk, and gait, that could be an early indication of something going wrong. So it's not so much we want to see what's going on in the house. It's more we need to know this information to compare it to everything else we're collecting in the way of nutrition, hydration, medication, exercise, physical therapy, and socialization, et cetera. And how is this fitting into the whole stream of information that is being collected? We have no intention of selling the data. The data is specifically for the use of the caregiver and whatever they want to do with it. We don't have the Amazon model or any of the big tech models. That data is theirs. They do with it as they see fit.
Got one more question in the back here.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, this is to Happy Home. Is this billable to the Medicare program or one of the MCOs?
We haven't gone down that path yet. What we have found is we don't believe that the person who is going to be receiving the care is going to be footing the bill. It's actually, you can take myself, for instance. It was myself and 5 sisters, so there were 6 of us. And to know that my mom was okay without having to drive hours to get to her to see that she's okay was well worth what it was that we would be paying for. We hope to be able to do something here in the state with Medicare and/or Medicaid providers. We have met with caseworkers and said if we could use this system and then do an analysis of all of the people that we're monitoring and set up a graphic indicator that if someone is doing at this level or better, there's someone who doesn't necessarily need a visit today, and if it's at this level or less, that's someone you want to focus on. We believe that's going to be of value. We believe that working with the state's going to be a positive thing, and I'd love to see Nevada be able to tell the other states, look what we've done for our seniors, look what we've done in the way of Medicare and Medicaid, and getting a better handle on those people that we're taking care of, and there may be an impact, a positive impact in the reduction of costs.
Sir, my question is also directed to Happy Home. Is this on? I couldn't tell. Nevada, as you probably well know, has a lot of territory and few people residing in those areas. We have vast areas of underserved people here. And I'm talking about, places that with the population of, in many instances, less than 100 people. And no doctors or the doctors that can practice there are few and far between. And I understand that we also have somewhat of a bandwidth problem here in the state in order to reach out to some of these folks. So you mentioned about you were doing some studies, seemed like locally, and of course there's not that problem here. So can this program, can Happy Home work with those underserved areas? And is there help that you could offer or expertise maybe that you could offer to those that are trying to do telemarketing, or not telemarketing, but telemedicine and that sort of thing in those areas?
This is actually a conversation I've had with Jillian and GOED. The state is doing some innovative things to try to bring bandwidth to less populated areas. I think the term we use familiarly is frontier. Our technology can work literally anywhere as long as there's we can work off of a cell signal, we can work off of Wi-Fi. It's really not a matter of will it work in a population of 25 or less. It's a matter of getting the signal there. And so our work with, or conversations with GOED, as they improve and as they deliver bandwidth throughout the state, we'll just piggyback on top of that.
I think that was all the time we had for right now, unless we're allowed to ask if there's any other questions.
Let's do one more
more?
question here,
Okay.
and then we'll wrap up
All
this
right.
panel. We'll move to panel 2.
Thank you for squeezing me in. This is a question for Scott. You're running a company that has technical staff. I don't know exactly what the disciplines are, but I'm building a startup company that needs to ultimately build its technical staff to develop compounds, and I'm going to need to recruit people to Las Vegas. Any observations or insights?
Yeah, I mean, start with the scientists that are here, and there are some good ones. They're a little bit hard to find, but I'm happy to sit with you and talk to you about some really, really good scientific talent here. In addition, I would say recruitment from Southern California to Nevada is viable. One of the things that I benefit from is at Roseman University of Health Sciences, we've got the best wet lab space in the state of Nevada. And in my building, in my wing of the building, we've got Cleveland Clinic, Lou Ruvo, which is degenerative diseases, translational lab. And we've also got UNLV, Department of cardiology research team there. So it's a real benefit, and this has happened at Roseman in the last 6 months or so, to have a lot of good research teams domiciled in the same building. And of course, that creates collaborations. But I would say start with the scientific talent here, and I'm happy to talk to you about that. And then neighboring states, Southern California, maybe Stanford too. You can get those people to collaborate with Nevada companies.